Good evening, or whatever time it is where you are. And welcome to us chatting about a little deck that I played recently. I call this Lunatic Disease. Pretty obvious where the name comes from. I'm playing Lunatic Eruption and Vampiric Disease. Very straightforward kind of thing. Lunatic Eruption is a card that forces a vampire to have to, well, minion actually, to have to enter combat with any minion controlled by their prey. You can burn it as an action, but it's superior. It does cost one. It does take one unpreventable damage to burn it. It does cost two. It is a demontation card. A neat thing that came up during the game, if you happen to watch it, is if you have two of them on a minion, they can't act because both of them are mandatory actions and they must happen. Additionally, a reminder, mandatory actions have to happen first. So yeah, this is a very fun card to play around with. It's a kind of card that doesn't necessarily stop your prey from putting pressure on their prey, which is a strategy that I think sometimes people overlook. Like, you don't want to backbreak your prey into a situation where they're not keeping the pressure circle going. Otherwise, you get an out of control cross-table ally. But I do think that you don't want it to be major, and Lunatic Eruption can do that, and periodically give you that option to shut a whole vampire down for a turn or two, if need be. In the original version of the deck, I was running both Aristotle and Herald. The idea here is we have two vampires with +1 stealth. If we get them both out, the Lunatic Eruptions are at 0 stealth, so that gives us the ability to put these on vampires a little more reliably overall. In addition, Vampiric Disease is the other key part of the card. You put a disease counter on a vampire, and you basically stop that vampire from being able to keep gaining blood. They blocks the hunt action from giving them blood, as well as causes them to burn a blood every time they unlock. Very powerful combination of effects that result in some pretty good outcomes when you've got people that have to hunt every turn. Following that up, in the original, we had some other things that were a bit odd here. So we're going to switch up the crypt, I think, largely. So I think all we really need to be running is Aristotle here. Aristotle is a fun card. He does give you +1 hand size, does give you permanent +1 stealth, or does have permanent +1 stealth, but he also gives everybody else +1 hand size, which you give and you get. But also we want to play a few smaller vampires, Apache Jones, Persia, and Uncle George. Overall, the rest of the action package is a little bit off. I've been debating this for a little while. Some feedback would, of course, be much appreciated. But running 2 copies of Blithe Acceptance. I like Blithe Acceptance with Aristotle because you do get that +1 stealth initially. You can get a second stealth, but it's an action that you lose, and this is a weakness of the deck. The deck really does suffer a bit from not having a huge action economy. You really kind of have the one action you can do, maybe 2 if you get one of the smaller vampires out. And it's not really fixed in either case by even playing Herald. They don't really have multi-act built in. There's some neat tricks you can do with Mask of 1,000 Faces, at least, where you can have Aristotle perform the action. Then once it's not been blocked, you can switch up the action to be done by either Persia or Apache or Uncle George, just to make sure it gets through. And they can't basically block it because it's already been blocked. So it's kind of like an unlock, but not really. It just lets your best vampire continue to do what it needs to do, but very costly. In addition, we're playing 2 Conceal. I like Conceal as a card. Just in general, it's very versatile. Burning equipment or a location has its situational usefulness. And sometimes you want one, sometimes you want the other. And again, Aristotle kind of overwhelms that whole no stealth problem. Playing a handful of Kindred Spirits just to get the bleed and the extra pool here and there. It's a nice little touch of something extra when you've got a prey that's mostly tapped down. And then a couple of Vultures Buffet. This is really just in there in the event that we're playing against something that has allies as a problem, or that might have a few retainers. This also is really good against Warghouls. If you got a player who happens to be playing Warghoul, you can every once in a while snipe out the retainer that they end up if you happen to shoot it off them. Deck's a little less likely to do that, but it is useful in those types of decks. But in this case, we're really just doing it in the event we run into something that's running with allies, most particularly going to be obviously Legionnaires. Playing the aforementioned Mask of 1,000 Faces for the benefit that it has there. Also, the occasional bonus stealth is nice, just in case you need it, although the vampires are not rocking superior obfuscate, so this is really more of a potential for Aristotle to save you on an action than anything else. Playing Spying Mission, because it's good. If you screw up a bleed, you don't have to screw it up. Deny as well, just versatile. Press and a stealth. Press to end if you need it. Stealth to get by if you need that. Same with Swallowed by the Night. Maneuver when you need it. Stealth when you need it. Touch of Clarity, nice to have one of these in the deck. Just every once in a while, it's a nice way to cancel a deflection that's coming at you. Can also manage to cancel a... it can also be used to cancel a Combat Ends card played under Presence, so you can still manage to, if you happen to have it, play your Coma. Speaking of the combat cards, we're also playing mostly No Trace. A lot of our vampires are not going to benefit from it unless we get the maneuver that we have from Soul by the Night, but for the most part, people are going to try to take down Aristotle. The smaller vampires are not going to be your big thing, and if you happen to lose one or two of them, whatever. Just deal with it and move on. Also playing a Copy Reality Mirror. Every once in a while, this is fun. Your mileage may vary. And then for our reactions, we're playing 6 Babble, because Babble is an interesting card in the way that it works with Vampiric Disease. Vampiric Disease isn't unlocks during your turn, it's any time you unlock. So you can Babble during an action to force a vampire to burn a blood. Let's say, for example, you've got a player who is bleeding and they look like they're about to get blocked. Your prey is in the process of that, or they're performing their Lunatic Eruption action and they're about to get blocked, or they're about to successfully enter the combat. You can Babble to unlock that vampire, drop them down a blood, and potentially cause their vampire to end up in torpor. Also playing 4 Eyes of Argus, because you gotta have wakes. I'm really notoriously bad for remembering to put wakes in my deck, but this time I did not somehow. I don't know, maybe it was Kismet. And then Wrong and Crosswise, because I think this card is very good. It's a nice versatility. Reducing a bleed is nice, and gaining some votes is nice. Not playing Bounce here. I feel like in a lot of the situations for this deck, you really need to keep vampires unlocked. You really do want to take good advantage of these Babbles with the right timing, and you're not going to do that if you're bouncing bleeds. You're going to have to up your Eyes of Argus package. You're going to have to do a lot of things differently to try to make this balance out. So overall, I think the deck is a lot of fun. I think the deck lacks a bit of ousting power. It has a nice mechanic of keeping your prey under control. It does have some ability to push some damage through, but I think the Blithe Acceptances are a little unnecessary. Maybe the Babble package isn't quite working as well as I want it to. Maybe I could come down on Lunatic Eruptions, but doesn't really help if you don't get a Lunatic Eruption, and then the deck is kind of meh. Sort of same with the Vampiric Disease. It's a lot to try to keep up with. So it's a deck, if you want to have some fun, you want to play around with some goofy and everybody's kind of on the same page for it, give it a try. If that's kind of not your jam, this is probably not going to be your jam, but I still really like the deck. I still want to tool around with it a bit, but it is a bit of an annoying balancing act trying to get all the cards the way you want them. So hope you like it. If not, let me know. If you do, let me know. If you got any changes you think I should make, let me know as well. Good night, everyone. Thanks for watching.